A lot of us are afraid of our furnaces. We don't want to touch them, don't want to mess with them. Probably don't want to pay for our big utility bills either. It's real difficult for us to imagine how we can make our furnace more efficient. It's even more difficult for us to imagine how we can control the prices of the oil and the natural gas that we burn. Do you have any idea why, in spite of the fact we have an overabundance of both oil and natural gas, that the prices are still real high? We'll get back to that later. In the meantime, there are a couple of simple things that we can do to our furnace to make it more efficient. Why do you suppose most of us let the furnace just sit there and waste energy?
I don't have the technical skill.
I didn't learn that in college. I just don't feel that I could take my furnace apart and work on it.
I figured you needed a union card or something like that to work on a furnace. Or...
So I just didn't feel like I was capable enough of doing that type of work.
One guy cannot do it. Everything. Life is specialized, right?
Who likes the crawl space?
Cobwebs. Spiders.
Sure, we can come up with all kinds of excuses why we shouldn't work on our furnace. But it's really a simple device and we can all do something with it. This is a model of a furnace here, and when the thermostat calls for heat in the room, it turns on the burner. Once the burner burns for a while to heat up the heat exchanger, then it'll turn on the fan, which delivers heat to the house. This thing really works. Once the room starts to warm up enough, it'll turn the burner off, but the fan will continue to run to take the rest of the heat out of the heat exchanger. Once all the heat's out of the heat exchanger, it'll turn off the fan. It's a real simple device, but there's lots of ways that we can lose some efficiency in it. For every $100 we pay the utility company, we only end up with $30 to $65 worth of heat in our house. We can deliver more of that heat to our house by increasing the amount of air that we move through the furnace. There are simple measures that almost all of us can do. But before you do anything, turn off the main switch that controls your furnace. We can cut down a lot of those losses by just increasing the amount of air that goes by the heat exchanger. And the first thing, of course, is to clean the filter. You've heard that a million times, but you probably haven't done it. The second thing is that we like the blower to go faster. So on a pulley type, we can just take the pulley halves and we can move those two halves closer together and put the belt back on and then readjust the belt tension so that we have the right amount of belt tension. The more air that we move through by cleaning the blower and oiling the motor and all that, the better off we're going to be. And a lot of people wonder, to what point do we stop? Well, when the child walks down the hall and gets knocked over by the delivery register, or the cat gets sucked down the return duct, well, that's probably too much. Somewhere a little short of that, though, we're going to save a fair amount of money by making these kinds of changes. Besides moving more air through the furnace, we have to make sure that the heat is delivered to the house. We can lose as much as 40% of our heat out of the ducts. We need to tape them and insulate them. Insulate the ducts. No, not ducts. Ducts. These. Insulate the ducts. It's with a T. Having your furnace go off and on in short cycles can lose as much as 10% of your heat. We can make the furnace run longer by getting a smaller furnace, or we can do two things. We can cut down on the cycling losses by finding the fan switch. It's hidden behind a cover in your furnace, like that. All we need to do is to make the fan start earlier and run longer. So we'll move the pointers down to 90 and 120 degrees. We also ought to adjust the anticipator. The anticipator is part of the thermostat that turns off the gas valve early. And if we move it to longer cycles, it just shuts it off later. We did these things on about 500 furnaces, and we found that on the average, people save 12% of their heating bill.